Alright, YouTube world, I got my Afrika Korps book. It is here. Want to say something right off the bat though. Look at that. Yeah, Battlefront, if you're watching, that's a problem. Got a brand new book here, and it's already fallen apart. So, I don't know what's going to happen with all this, but, you know, so much for perfect quality. I mean, the Desert Rats book was not like that. It looked great. Looks like it's going to last a long time. This one, yeah, not so much. So, right there, got off to the wrong foot. When I saw that, my heart sank. Anyway, getting to Afrika Korps books, I just wanted to mention real quick to the people that are saying, look how little this book is. There's no information here. And you're right, that's true. There is no information here. But I do want to bring up a point because a lot of people that say that like to go to tournaments. Well, if you have an Afrika Korps tournament in version 3, you're lugging this bad boy around. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not 22 years old anymore. And, you know, carrying a tome like this around for one little army list and all of this stuff is, you know, not fun. So, and you pretty much have to bring it, even if you have the sheet, the printout sheet for your army. You really do want to bring this just to have it. So, yeah, this you know, you got a bag that you put your stuff in, and this is it's a lot of weight. It's probably half of your weight in your bag. So, you know, now you've got this. Now you've got this one. You want to bring the whole list of Desert Rats together. It's not going to weigh that much. It's much less than the entire one over there. So that's a big plus. You know, for tournament people, I just want to bring nice, you know, carry light stuff and get away with that. This is another plus in this version 4 category. Okay, looking at the Afrika Korps book. Now, the theme for today, or the theme for this video, is not just the Afrika Korps, but getting started on Flames of War. And the reason why this subject is coming up with the Afrika Korps book is because if you are beginning, you have no models, you just see it and you want to get into it, you think this is a cool game, well, get Germans. There's many reasons for that. First off, the Germans are monetarily the cheapest, and because they're cheap because you don't need as many models. So the good thing about that is that means less models to paint. So a beginner probably doesn't want to paint all that much. So you want as few model counts as possible. So I highly recommend that somebody new getting into the game takes Germany, which means, hey guys, if you're a veteran like me, then you should get British, okay? Just be nice, bring some people in, go ahead and if you don't already have a British army, go ahead and get one started to help new people enter as the Germans. German's a lot easier to get into. Also, you have less units to worry about on the board, so you can keep track of it better, whereas if you have 1 billion units on the board, it's going to be difficult for a new player to keep track of everything. So, same setup as the Desert Rats that I showed yesterday, or the other day, and you know, there's a couple differences. Of course, they got different force structures. One thing to note, it's been pointed out that Tigers do not show up until Tunisia. So people consider this to be an El Alamein type of time period, but no, this is German forces throughout the entire time period. So like I said the other day, this is a vanilla book that you have the basic forces all throughout that time period. Yeah, it's going to be focused on the earlier part of the mid-war, but they're going to throw in that Tigers for a couple of reasons. You know, it's just to give it a good balance. And who doesn't like Tigers? You know, people that have a German book, especially beginners, they're going to want to get onto that Tiger. And I'm going to get into that later, which is a very important thing to help new players get started. So you have the basic four. You got Panzer 3s, Panzer 4s, and Afrika Korps Company. Your support right here for artillery, for tank destroyers, Tigers, recon, 88s, anti-air, and your aircraft. The companies are much different than the British. As you can see here, instead of having 3 units, they have 5 units, and they have more options. They've got the Panzer IV or Panzer III for one of the required, but also they got a Panzer II over here that you can get, and I highly recommend you get your hands on some Panzer IIs. They are pretty sweet. You know, you think that they're not so good, but they're pretty useful on the board. So let's take a look at the Panzer III companies. Basically, Panzer IIIs, what you need to know is the 3 versions of the Panzer III. There are only 3 versions. You've got the well, actually, you got 4 versions. You've got the short 75 millimeter cannon. You've got the short 5 centimeter, the long 5 centimeter, and then you've got the up-armored version, which is always a long 5 centimeters. The difference between them is that we'll start with the short 5 centimeter. You get 8 anti-tank. Long gets 9. That's the only difference. And then the up-armored, the only difference between that and the regular long is the front armor goes up by 1. That's it. So 5 points for the short, 7 points for the long, and 8 points for each tank for the up-armored. These guys right here, they are 8 points also, just like the up-armored or the cannon, which have a good range, and they're kind of like they're really good at taking out other tanks. Let's just put it that way. And so they got anti-tank 9, firepower 3, which beats the firepower 4s of everything else. So if you want to wail on things from long distance with the heat doesn't give +1 to their armor at long range, so just keep that in mind. So Panzer III tanks now, and I'll get more into this later, but the Panzer III tanks, the short, are my favorite. 5 points, and you're going to be able to handle anything that the British can throw at you, so there's really no reason to, well, there's not a great reason to upgrade to the bigger guns, the better guns, unless you just want to be really mean. But the short, you get more of those tanks, put more firepower, more shots on the enemy, and they do almost as good a job, so I like them. Then you got the mix, that's just if you want to mix them up. And the Panzer II platoon, I really like, not because they have little armor, not because their gun isn't so great. They move pretty much the same, but they're very cheap, 2 points per tank, and they get spearhead. That is huge. I love units with spearhead. Get to extend that deployment zone and jump out into the middle of the board if you want to. Then we go to the Panzer IV. Looks more like the British, where they got 3 Panzer IVs, no options. You can add a Panzer III in there if you want to. Another thing I wanted to point out, if you notice in the units, headquarters units can be 1 or 2, whereas the British would have 2, 3, sometimes 4 in their headquarters, and for the regular units they would always have 3 in the unit, whereas the Germans here, they have 2, 3, or 4, and the Panzer IIIs would be 3, 4, or 5 in the unit, so there's a lot more flexibility with the Germans, also aiding the beginner player. Now in the Afrika Rifle Company, when you buy the blisters, and I'll show you later, you get 2 blisters, and that'll give you a headquarters, and then you buy a box of these, and that'll get you your compulsory units for this company. So the infantry is pretty straightforward. You've got your anti-tank guns, which are really good, and your anti-air over here if you wanted to, and here's where I get into those messed up pages, so I want to be careful. And then the Tiger, big honking Tiger. Look at all those points. Okay, and you can add Panzer IIIs to escort them, which is not always a great idea, but they're going to rip through anything, They're going to bounce pretty much every shot. They're never going to run away. They're always going to remount. It's hard to hit. They always do their blitz. Just a beast. Literally a beast on the board for mid-war. British have really nothing to deal with it. Martyrs, good anti-tank. Now they're worth it. Look at that anti-tank at 12. Gonna rip through anything. 88s again. Gonna rip through everything. Pretty good gun save. Hard to hit. So, but the nice thing about them is in a pinch. Now they get rate of fire too, but in a pinch, if you get attacked by a plane, they can shoot one shot. They're self-defense, so they can still throw one shot. And if they hit, you know, they get through the save. That's a 3-up firepower. That's the best firepower you're going to get on anti-air. Then you got your recon, you know, you got your scout and spearhead, which is always good to have. And then we have the observation post for the artillery, which is right here. Pretty good artillery. And there's the self-propelled artillery, something I don't believe the British have. And then your dive bombers, which only have bombs. There's no cannons or machine guns or anything, unfortunately. I do expect that to change with cards or something else. So in the back they have a really nice painting guide, just like with the Desert Rats. What I don't like is that they've got their own paint. There's no real correspondence to Vallejo, which a lot of people have. I have. They have a PDF, but it's not updated. And I wish Battlefront would just be on the ball with that, because it's really frustrating getting all the new stuff, and then I'm going to have trouble painting it because I can't quite figure out exactly what they're talking about with Afrika green, you know, Daxan. I don't know what that is. What's the equivalent? It's not on the PDF, Battlefront. Get on the ball. But I really like how this is really good for beginners because you can see how you're supposed to paint and just how difficult the technique is. You know, so if you see 1, it's real easy. If you see 2, it's a little bit more difficult. So they try to keep it real simple here in this book. And they don't, you know, if you buy their paints, you're good to go. But if you don't have them, well, you know, you're kind of on your own. So I wish they were a little bit better about that. All right, so now let's get to the beginners. If I were a beginner,